Welcome to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. In this episode, we'll be listening to Building Non-Traditional School Partnerships, a session that was presented at Winter Institute 2026 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. It is 2:30. Everyone coming in, just take your time and find a seat. Welcome to Building Non-Traditional School Partnerships. Woo! I'm really excited to talk about this. This is going to be great. Welcome to the session. Thank you guys so much for coming. We are going to take a couple minutes just to go over some housekeeping and other fun stuff. Just a reminder that there is an ABA room minder today. It's going to be Emma who's going to be coming around with the microphone. So when we save some time at the end for some questions, just make sure you're speaking into the microphone. Wait until she makes her way there. And also, you can tell us how we did in the survey. Tell us what you thought about the session. Another reminder that the recordings will be on BookWeb and on a Book Ed afterwards. If everyone also just wants to take a minute to silence your cell phones, please. And I also want to thank Ingram, lead sponsor of the event, and all of our other publisher sponsors. And, here we go, antitrust guidelines. We're going to go over the antitrust guidelines real quick. Booksellers are encouraged to share ideas and support during the conference, but just a reminder, the Sherman Antitrust Act prohibits us from discussing price or pricing policies, boycotts, dividing up the market. Can't talk about those things. All right, and I think we can go ahead and start with some introductions.
Start down here.
Okay. Wherever we want to start. I guess I'll maybe...
Yep.
What? No, you go ahead. We'll start at this end.
All right. Hi, my name is Allie Sussmat. I am the Kids Buyer and Department Manager and Events Manager at Changing Hands Bookstore in Phoenix and Tempe, Arizona.
Hi, I'm Jenny Cohen. My husband and I own Wacoma Bookstore in Hood River, Oregon. It's about an hour east of Portland. We're in a small rural community. It's a farming community, but it's also a tourist destination. And we have, just so you, for context, we have my husband and I work full time, and then we have 4 other part-time employees. So a smaller store.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hannah Peterson. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee with Parnassus Books. I do our children's and YA events there.
I'm Maggie Robe, the Events and Marketing Manager at Flyleaf Books in Chapel Hill. It's a college town, young families, and a lot of people like to retire there.
Nice. Well, all right. Just to kind of give an overview of what we're going to talk about today in Building Non-Traditional School Partnerships. By the end of this session, you will be able to identify how non-traditional school partnerships benefit bookstores and schools by increasing access, strengthening relationships, and supporting equity-focused engagement. Identify non-traditional, low-cost, accessible entry points with stores of all sizes. And identify different opportunities to get connected with the educator community. And so we're going to start by defining non-traditional partnerships. What defines non-traditional and what does that mean today? I think that can really vary just depending on, again, your bookstore and your size and sort of what your needs and what your school needs are. Does anyone want to start with that first?
Yeah, I think for the traditional school partnerships, you're thinking bringing out an author, bringing them to your schools, doing author visits, and, the schools shopping on a purchase order, placing bulk orders, things that are a traditional schools that have funding are able to work within, the indie channel with us. I think non-traditional, as a lot of people know, schools are facing funding issues. And so we have to get a little bit more creative about what those partnerships look like if our schools are not able to do bulk buys or large spends.
Yeah, I mean, probably jumping a little bit ahead, but there's no money in our school district. There's one school district in our town. There's one high school and 4 elementary schools that feed into that system. I'm in a town where my husband was born and raised in this small town, so we have a lot of local connections. So a lot of the leveraging for me in our town is who do I know that can make this happen? So I'm utilizing a lot of the people that I know in the bookstore to get things done at the school. I'm also very, very involved in my son's PTO at his school. It's a very non-traditional PTO, and we're very proud of it. We do traditional events, but we also go out and partner with community partners to bring the services that the students need to the school. So I'll talk a little bit more about grant writing later, but.
Yeah, so like we said, one size does not fit all, and it doesn't have to be complicated to start connecting with schools. At Parnassus, I try to go in a few different ways, and I'll go more into depths about, the different avenues that at least I've tried to take, but being flexible and creative really helps. And again, just meeting schools where they are, whether they're private schools, Title I schools, at Parnassus, our situation is a little bit more specific because we have a charity, or the Parnassus Foundation, that helps us send authors to Title I schools. Obviously, this is not going to be applicable to a majority of bookstores or lots of other bookstores. And so there are other ways to meet schools where they are. Something that I will also get into is school shop nights, teacher appreciation nights, education newsletters, and so different avenues to take. Does anyone else have anything about? I guess something else I would say about non-traditional is, again, varies by bookstore, but I guess for our store, traditional would be partnering with schools for author events, again, and sending authors to schools, but just being an events forward bookstore. But I think non-traditional in our sense would be rather bringing schools and teachers into the bookstore. And doing that in the last couple years has been a big change from the ways that we engaged with schools before, and we're able to connect with them. And so bringing schools into the bookstore, which again, we'll talk about more, was a way that we were able to connect with way more educators, teachers, and school librarians than we had before. Anyone else? All right, so we're going to talk about some entry points. Can they be low cost and accessible? The answer is yes. Yes, they can be. So something we were talking about at the beginning is the funding realities and grant dependence. Again, obviously this can vary by bookstore, and small actions can make a big difference. But yeah, does anyone want to talk about different kinds of funding that they have?
How do I frame? If you're a smaller store, I think you want to keep in mind you don't have to do big to make a huge difference. Like, all of my damaged books, all my kids' damaged books, they go straight to the school. They go straight to the school library, and they decide whether they're going to keep it at my son's school, or if they're going to distribute out to the other schools, or if they're going to use those as prizes. That's like one simple thing. Like, everyone's got damages. Oftentimes you're not shipping those back. And so we just keep a pile. And then once the box is full, we deliver to them. Same with the adult books, because the high school doesn't have any funding for books either. Any of the books that are damaged are, we put them in a box, we call them, and like the high school librarian just picked up like 6 boxes. So it can be as simple as that. It can be simple as donating something that they want to raffle off. It's often damaged books again. So you can start very small, and that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and for any stores that have a used counter, our used counter takes in kids' books and adults' books, and any books we can't take, we give the customer the option. They can take them back with them, try somewhere else, or we will donate the books for them. They either go to our friends of our public library, or they go to the schools, and they get boxed up, set in a cabinet, and we have a rotating list of school needs and teachers that fill out a form requesting assistance for their school classroom or their school library. They come in and they get to shop the cabinet, shop the boxes, and they leave with 2 or 3 middle grade boxes or 2 or 3 YA if they're looking for an entire set of, Diary of a Wimpy Kid or all of the Riordan books. We try to, we do a large trade counter, so we get those boxes and those things filled fairly swiftly for them. And once we help the school, they go to the bottom of the list. We move the list up. Same for schools that have book vending machines. Damages are really great if they're in like really good condition damage, or getting those used books from our trades desk. Our customers love knowing their used books that we can't take in the store, whether we already have one or something, goes to the schools. And it's free for, us, free for the school, free for the teachers, and really is a great entry point.
Yeah, I'll just speak a little to the having sort of lists and having, if you have a website and having places where teachers can like search, just keeping your lists updated for like on the new book side for teachers, and just if you can make recommendations for them, and they can shop from that. And you can do, if there's a foundation or a partnership for your public school district or something like that, you can do drives for them, and targeted, wish lists on your website or in your store display that benefits your school. So basically, you just want to become synonymous with books in your community, and any way that you can support that way with used or new books, I think is key to sort of making them just think of you, and they'll think of ways to partner with you as well.
I wanted to piggyback on that because the foundation nonprofit partnership is key. I know a lot of bookstores that have nonprofit arms now, but a lot of us don't have the capacity to do that. So being able to partner with different nonprofits in your community is really helpful. Or just even maybe there's a customer in your store that's willing to donate money. I often hit up customers in the store that are local, and maybe they know someone that might be able to donate money for this project. Maybe would maybe buy 50 books. So like the high school right now, they have a banned books club. And so they send a letter out to like businesses and other places. I can't afford to donate books directly to the banned books club. But we do is partner with whoever is buying the books for that month and give them a discount.
And wanted to say one more thing. We have started a new program it was kind of a test around the holidays and has stayed on permanently as the new year just rolled out, for books for teachers, where at our registers and online, customers, can round up the same way you would at like Petco or wherever, their purchases, whether it's an online or in person. And those donations go right into a fund. We don't have a nonprofit arm. It goes kind of onto like a store gift card that lives for teachers. Mm-hmm. And as the teachers come in, we use that to buy, if a Title I school needs an author and they can't do the 30 book minimum buy. That's a way that we've been able to provide for the schools that want to go the traditional route and, have an author in school or do a PO. Our customers are funding that, and they were very, very happy. They're like thrilled when they get asked, would you like to round up for a school, because they know that their dollars are staying in the community. And they're really generous. We don't have like a, $1 or $3 or $5 max. It's kind of like, how much would you like to add on? And customers will do $20, $30, $50, just because they are happy to support us, and they are happy to know and see where their dollars are going. And the teachers then are prioritized based on their needs, their Title I status, their, neighborhood. And we've lost a lot of our librarians in a certain district in this year. They cut all of them. So we've been trying to fill in the gaps for those schools as well through that program.
I mean, I feel like a lot of us are facing that reality. So when we had this conversation to prep for this ahead of time, like I mentioned, I'm involved in the PTO at my son's school a lot. And so I went to a Winter Institute, and I had heard about grant writing, and I thought it was this daunting thing. And I went to the grant writing thing, and I realized that my skills at my previous job being a financial analyst were pretty much the same skills I needed to grant write. So now what I do is I leverage my connections in the community and use the PTO as a nonprofit to apply for grants for the school. So whether it's right now, we got a $4,000 grant because a customer was very involved with the local food bank. And so they gave us $4,000 to start a backpack food program. And I know that's not directly related to books, but in the bigger picture, the students at the school can't focus on learning if they don't have their basic needs met. So if I want future readers in my community, that's what that's why I'm writing all these grants for them. We got $2,500 to start the basic needs room. So just making sure that our community is being taken care of and finding those people in your community that can help you do that will lead to other things. Because we're a small town, people think of us a lot. Because we're involved with the PTO, we're involved with the school, and we're involved just in general with different people coming into the store. So our principal is awesome. She also writes grants. She got a $750,000 grant from the state of Oregon and do a cultural learning program. It was a cultural learning after school program, but it also kind of bled into like stuff that we did during the day. So she spent $10,000 with us because we were very involved in the school to buy bilingual books. And then she spent an additional $4,000 from that grant for 2 virtual school author visits that were bilingual for the kids. So if you're a smaller store or maybe a smaller community, really leverage those partnerships in the community.
Yeah, definitely being community centered is key. It can be small or big, and just meeting members of the community and educators where they're at is big key. And also asking for support and saying, what can I do to help you, and how can we make this mutually beneficial? A couple things on here: our Teacher Appreciation Night, like I mentioned, that's something I started doing last year. And it's been a really great way to connect with teachers in our area. And I keep it not just for the district, I keep it for schools in our district, but not just for public, but for any teachers, K through 12. And librarians also, because school librarians absolutely deserve to be treated and celebrated. And that's really all this the Teacher Appreciation Night is about. There isn't really, too much you need to invest to make this happen. Just making teachers feel special and celebrating them. And a few different things that I've done that have been successful is if you already have a teacher discount in your store, adding just like an extra 5% on top of that. That was like a big enticer. That way they can shop for themselves. They can shop for their classroom if they like. And it's private shopping the way we've done it. So I usually do it for 2 hours after the store is closed. That way our booksellers can give our teachers and librarians their full attention, help them find what they're looking for, just really, really make them feel valued. And then we have prize drawings, because who doesn't want to have a prize drawing? Just a few gift cards is wonderful. They're just happy to be there and to just, have their name drawn out of a raffle for a door prize is really fabulous. So they get excited about that. And like I said, it can be gift cards, or publishers send you event materials where you're like, this is really great and I want to do something with this, but I'm not entirely sure it's going to be compatible with, my store or the events that I'm putting on. But I still want to give it to someone who's going to appreciate it. Teachers and educators definitely will. And then, swag, other kinds of things. We had a situation where there was a mug ordering, catastrophe. We had all these mugs. They let us keep them. What are we going to do with all these mugs? Give them to teachers. Yeah. So that was just a nice little thank you thing. So again, it can just be whatever your store's, abilities are. And there's a lot of different just fun things you can do. We made totes this past time. And again, this is probably, I think, the 5th teacher night that we had. And it's grown every time, which has been great. And I've figured out key times for the year are July and January. And again, I guess that can vary depending on where you are, but our booksellers who are also high school teachers, I asked them specifically, if you, as a teacher, when would you, like a night, sort of to relax? And I guess post holidays, right before school starts back in session, and then in summer, because in Tennessee, we get out in May pretty early. So around the time, school is maybe about to get back in session in August. So those were two key times that they said were good. Like a refreshment table, just have some beverages, a couple bottles of wine. Teachers, for the most part, teachers really are just like happy to just chat and relax and mingle with each other. And then we did something called live staff recs, which was just going up to the front, with a microphone if you have one, and right before, after you do the prize drawing, just say, hey, we just want to throw a few books your way that we think are going to be awesome for your classroom library. And booksellers that you have who are working the event, just have them pick their favorite kids' books. And it's the best. And let's see. All right. So we're going to move on to relationship building and community engagement. All right. So with building relationships, and again, this is really just about meeting educators and people in the community where they are. I think what's really worked for me is to be consistent. So I started a teacher newsletter, and I just have a QR code, a few flyers around the store, and some at the register. And that way, when teachers are checking out, our bookseller checking out can say, "Hey, you signed up for our teacher newsletter," and it's pretty informal. Really, all I have in there is just things that teachers want to know. So upcoming kids in YA events that they may want to attend themselves, if it's an author that they love or that they want to tell their classroom about. And sometimes in that, I've also, I don't know if anyone here has tried offering event attendance for extra credit. That has worked before also. Great way to get people in the store and also, have that mutual benefit. Other things in the newsletter that I've included, besides upcoming events, things happening in the community. I also try to, I've done it quarterly. So I try to do it sort of seasonally, just in what I have the theme in the introduction is kind of centered around just the time of year. So in April, I've done, summer reading right before school starts because we have summer reading, all around our store. And then around holiday time, I've talked more about like wish lists, just something else we talked about. And other things I've included. I have like a recent school visits gallery. So school visits that we've done, I usually try to snap a few photos and then include that at the bottom, or a recent events gallery of things that we've had, or the past teacher night. And then I'll usually have the link to sign up for the next one in that too.
I was just going to jump in and say, if you have like any sort of wish list or you have teachers that are looking for titles, the grants that our teachers are getting are for bilingual books in Spanish and for SEL, so social emotional learning. So if there's any publishers out there, make sure those lists are readily available so we could share those with our teacher friends.
And then, some restrictions that obviously this can be hard. Going through your community partners, again, just reaching out to your community is, I think, one of the best ways.
One of the events that the PTO took on, because I got a $250, $2,500, sorry. Long day, $2,500 grant to restart my son goes to a bilingual school and 85% of the students are Mexican American. So we got a grant to restart the traditional Mexican dancing program through the PTO. So we were looking for an event where the kids could perform, and our local library always celebrates Dia del Niño, so the Day of the Child. In the spring, it's at the end of April. So we were able to partner with them to do an event that they already had that's existing. So they're already bringing books to give away for free, which is great. And there's already community partners there. So that was something that really we've continued to do. Where can I can't afford a mobile bus. I would love to someday, but the library has one already, and many of community members already support it in our town. So where can I bring them in to partner with them so they could provide services that I'm not able to do by myself? And so I invite them to a lot of the different events that we do with the school. So whether it's carnival or as we call it, kermes, And that event has 1,200 students and families that show up, whether it's something like Dia del Nino or something like we had Loteria night. And so the library came in and provided books. So I might not be able to provide everything as a store, but if I'm partnering with the library, it's twofold for both of us. We're reaching readers and, free books is better, getting them to the students that really need them.
I was just going to say one thing referencing this slide here, this screen-free bingo card. A school reached out to us about Screen-Free Week, which is in the beginning of May. So I think that's just an awareness of kind of on the teacher side, just an awareness of your schools and sort of like what ways that they, with their curriculum, that they might be opportunities to partner. So for we were provided prizes for this school that had this, actually it was a district-wide initiative, but it was just, it was a time of year in early May when authors were touring. So I was able to sort of create a story time and do an author visit, but also just, be part of the bingo card. They could come to Flyleaf and get a coupon for our used book room. So I think an awareness of what's happening on their calendar and knowing the ebbs and flows of their time, but also where there are opportunities to do things for them from a programming, point. And, also it's kind of good to know, and this speaks on your work on the PTA, knowing when teachers, there's kind of lulls and certain times of year are harder than others. When are they testing? When is morale low? It's just kind of just really communicating with them and just knowing what their needs might be and knowing the neighborhoods that they're in and what the history of that neighborhood is. Because one of our local elementary schools, one of our Title I schools has a local history night, and just going there and setting up a table and just, again, meeting them with what they are wanting and to supply. And so that was what we've done in a couple of these instances of engaging with them.
Yeah, and I think talking about knowing your community partners, we come back to this idea a lot in our store of who are the stakeholders in the districts and in the neighborhoods we live in, not just with the teachers and the librarians and the educators, but maybe who are the PTO presidents, maybe who is your district superintendent, which districts are, for us, we're in Arizona, and certain districts we're a red state. So more districts are more friendly towards books than others. More districts are more friendly towards educators and school funding than others. And even within some of those districts where our educators are under fire, there are certain people on their district boards that are more amenable and, finding out maybe they're your customers and they're on that board, or maybe there are people in your city on at a bigger government level that care about your store, care about books, care about students. And we've found that getting those larger stakeholders involved, where the districts right now are losing money, if we can let the people know that have the money that this is a problem, they have been more than willing to step up and more than willing to help find creative ways to partner with schools in ways we would not have thought. We have a district that we are now taking what we've done with them as a model and going to our other districts, where the district has a performing arts center on one of the campuses. It has 8 schools, K through 12 or K through 8, 4 Title I, 1 Spanish immersion, and it also has a performing arts and a STEM or whatever. But it is a very diverse district, and the theater itself, the district uses it, but the theater is also its own venue space, and they have their own board of trustees, and that board of trustees has funded and worked with the district where we can now bring an author out, and the theater itself pays for every school to be bussed in and every student to get a book. That is not something that the district pays for. It doesn't come from their funding. And we would not have known that if the theater was not hey, we have schools in our district, how can we help them? And we have 3 other districts that also have a theater that also have that same setup. And now we have a working model to go to them and say, hey, another district has this. Do you have this same buy-in? Do you have the same shareholders? And you don't know who in your community is able to do that. I know certain sports teams, when you reach out to them, are have nonprofits, and you don't think a major sports team would care about an indie bookstore, but they do. It helps their bottom line look good. And looks better than kids getting books and schools being funded. And sometimes that looks like buying all of the educator resources or helping be a sponsor for a in-store book fair night. So really, in a time where our schools and our districts might just be grasping at straws, it's looking outwards and finding who are the stakeholders in your area.
And I'll say to that, if you don't do in-store like book fairs or spirit nights at your store, that's a great way to get the school community into your store, where you can offer back if they identify as they're shopping in the store, if they're identifying themselves as being a part of that school community, then a percentage of those sales go to a store to a credit. Like that's how we do it at our store. We just to a fund that would then the librarian, whoever's identified from the school, can come and buy books from that. So that's something that's very easy to do. And so I highly recommend doing a in-store book fair, or we call them spirit days or spirit weeks. And we do programming around it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something also that I'll speak on that we've done. We call them our school shop nights. But we will again do it like usually for the last couple hours of our store being open from like 3 to 6, and just teachers and librarians and parents and families and kids from the community just come all in, and we just try to make it as fun as possible. Sometimes we'll do things like have a special story time if a staff member, which they usually do ask, they say, we would like to do a story time, their teacher or librarian, or maybe sometimes someone from the school board. And that's really special. Having it be a theme. We've had schools who do it as their readathon every year, and now it's something that they do yearly. And where they all dress up as their favorite book character at school, and then they come and shop after school, and it's very fun. And some photos here of some other ways that you can build relationships and listen to your school needs. A couple slides here I recognize from our own store. Another way that I have been able to connect with stores that I hadn't before is by starting Spanish story time. It's something that we tried first couple times, and it was so much fun. And we actually have had teachers from our local Spanish immersion schools in the area. I reached out to them through our teacher newsletter and at teacher night and said, if any instructor wants to come and volunteer to be our reader for Spanish story time, come on. And we have story time every Saturday. But Spanish story time is something that we knew was really important to make a regular part of our programming. And it's the best thing ever. And so this here, Senora Adele, she is a local second grade teacher. And so she has been our guest multiple times, and she will usually read a bilingual book, or a book in English and a book in Spanish, and then have a wonderful activity afterwards. And so those were schools that we had not really connected with before, that were a little outside of our scope. And now we have these wonderful relationships with these teachers also. Anyone else?
I have one thing I want to say. If you have an event space, if you have like a stage or a place where you can host people, another fun thing is if a school does a sort of a writing competition, or if they have any sort of, some schools will have, their students will produce some sort of written project, and you can host them at the store for a night to celebrate the work that they've done. And that's just super fun for them to be able to come into your space and feel like they're like real authors, in that area. And then that just kind of, solidifies and reworks that relationship, and they just get comfortable and come think of you as being the book place, in addition to the library, which of course we love the library as well. But yeah, we've done that before. And we've also offered the space to our local district for a principals meeting, just a random sort of like, as a venue for them that's an alternative to being in their working space, where they could bring in like, bagels and have a breakfast meeting and just sort of a casual get together. So yeah, just offering our space to them for other kinds of ideas, other things.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, we have a community space at one of our stores that on the last day of the school year, this year we're going to try and do it the last week of the school year, a couple of our schools come and do their Meet the Teacher night for the next year. And so the teachers send us their summer reading lists and their fall required reading lists for their K through 12. We stock, just a very few, kind of similar to if you do offsite book fairs, similar numbers to that. And they bring their school mascot. All of the teachers come, they sit at their table, they have their, summer reading and their fall required reading in front of them. The teachers then become the booksellers and hand sell their required reading to their incoming students. They also get, since the last week of school, the students get to say goodbye to their teacher and then meet their, upcoming teacher. We've done this now for 6 years with one school, and the students know us. They know our booksellers. We know K through 12 teachers now. I know their reading lists. I end up sitting at some of their tables sometime and hand selling the books and jumping in when students ask. But we've now seen kids go from, 5th grade up to high school, and they do this every year. Their parents know. And it is also a book fair in store for them. So the money that they spend on these books goes back to the school as well. Mm-hmm. That's also in our space that has a book cafe and bar inside. So the parents end up buying drinks. So it just kind of becomes this family space, and they look forward to it. And again, once that model we found worked for one school, we're able to then go to our other schools in the district and say, hey, would you like to host your Meet the Teacher here? And since it's right near summer, we also then hand out all of our summer reading supplies and our bingo and whatever we do. So we get those students in our ecosystem, those families in our ecosystem. And it really has become a way the community gets involved. We, to echo everybody else, do those regular book fair nights, really helpful for all of the schools to come in, shop, get some money back. And they really have run of that space to do whatever they want. They could just come in and shop, but if they want to have their PTO meeting on top of that, they can. If they want to have their, I don't know, like they have had a writing-thon as well. There's so many ways that the school can then utilize your space to kind of be a community hub as we are. And then they want to come back and they want to continue to support, and the educators feel like we have their backs. Another thing we do are school field trips. We have, especially with the high school writing clubs and some other things we offer. If you bring your students, we'll do a personal bookstore tour. We'll go over all the bestsellers in the sections. What does being a bookseller look like? They get to go back, watch receiving. And we usually try and, for those students that are there, either pull from our Books for Teachers fund, or if they do shop, we give them the educator discount. So the students and the teachers then get a personalized experience in the store, which has been really, really fun. And I had one more thing, and it's out of my brain. I was really excited.
It's okay. I'll jump in real quick and also say that we have also done bookstore tours, and those are really fun. Another thing that we have liked to add in there is if you have any local authors who would like to just come by and just talk about what it's like to be an author as part of their field trip, that has been a huge success. We have a wonderful local picture book author who it's, like many picture book authors, it's just her life's joy to tell children about how awesome being an author is and how happy it makes her. And so she'll give her little slideshow presentation, and we'll do a story time for them, lay out the story time rug, and then we'll, have a Q&A about what it's like. And, obviously this can look different for grade levels. Obviously, if you're going middle school and high school, it's going to look a little bit different. But you can adjust as needed. But for younger, especially, that was really great to see. And any chance to build that bridge between a kid and an author is great. But thank you for what you were saying about also keeping your bookstore as a community hub. It's so important to keep our bookstores as third spaces and as community spaces. And, we can't be quick to forget or we can't forget that it's so beneficial, not just for our community, but for our bookstores. So again, that mutual benefit, it's something that we both need to keep the ecosystem alive.
I was just going to jump in, and I don't do book fairs. It's a lot of work. But what I did do is, so our schools do Scholastic Book Fair. It's like they're all kind of tied into that already. But our one of our middle schools has a high, again, because my son's school feeds into it, has a high percentage of bilingual students. And the librarian was going to stop doing Scholastic, like just completely stop, because the kind of Spanish books that they were providing at the middle school level were like board books and picture books. So I brought in Spanish books in Spanish and bilingual books that were appropriate for middle schoolers. And they really loved it. Whether it was really profitable, it wasn't that profitable, but being able to see themselves in those books was really important to that librarian and the teachers. So that went a really long way.
I remembered my thing.
Go for it.
This was such a weird one that like I would never have known to seek this out with a school partnership. And then once it happened, I have been like, oh, we should tell other people this exists. We have our junior high that does their spring musical every year. And they needed a space they approached us to use our very small stage area, which is where our history books are, to do a matinee first public performance of Seussical, because they were like, what more fun way to do this? Like, we're doing Seussical, we should do this at a bookstore, ha ha ha. And the parents all came and they watched, the 10, 15 junior hires run through 2 songs of the Seussical, and then they read a Dr. Seuss story. And we have now done that for like 10 years with this one school, and other schools have found this out that we do this. And they have brought in their theater program, people that are not normally in our space. And the parents on a Saturday morning, they do their public run through of 2 or 3 songs. They read a book, even if it doesn't have to do with the musical. It's not always Seussical. And then it turns into either a fundraiser for that theater department, which is a place in your school you're not normally giving funding to. It's not usually books, but it has been a way to get a foothold in those schools that we don't normally reach. And when we book them, it's like, hey, do you want to invite your librarian as well? We'll, offer them the same discount that we're offering you. And we've now gained a school and librarians and educators from that school through the theater department. So if you're trying to find ways to connect with different schools in your district that you haven't even thought of before, try the different avenues. Maybe it's a sports club thing. I don't know. Sports team. That's the word I was looking for. And inviting them to host their like awards banquet in your space, a small, if you are a small store, or inviting them to do their fundraiser through you. Even if it's not through the librarian or the educator or the teachers that host authors, there are so many different avenues. We have a junior bookseller program, and we let the NJHS and NHS officers of the schools know that counts for volunteer hours. And then the schools, then the students go and take their hours, and they're like, what is this random bookstore? And we've also found partnerships with the librarian and educators into a new school by just having our junior booksellers be kind of like our ambassadors. So whilst we want to support our schools, if you're looking for new ways to create partnerships, maybe looking at those different avenues that you wouldn't have thought of before.
One thing I'll add about like kind of the ecosystem of where your store is. If you're located in a shopping area like a strip mall like we are, and there's a bunch of different small businesses, we partnered with a school once for not just our Spirit Week, but it was a discount across all the different stores. And so the families really did go out when they're like, oh, we can go to the restaurant that's there, and this little gift shop and the bookstore and that kind of stuff. So we created sort of it wasn't a bookstore crawl, but it was just kind of our shopping center crawl one day that then they really pushed out to families and got families to come out for that day. So that was a very fun happening.
All right. So in summary, and unless anyone else, anything to add? Anything to add there? Okay. Well, just to summarize, one size does not fit all. And so try different avenues depending on your store size. And this is an opportunity to fill the gaps. If you don't have a lot of teachers coming into your store, if you don't have a lot of engagement with families or with librarians in your community, I think reaching out and bridging these gaps is one of the most important parts of the community that we can reach. And We need it.
And we can't do it alone. Stores, we all know that schools are losing funding, and the community around you is also the other bookstores in your area, but also organizations that are fighting this fight alongside of you. ABFI has resources for helping stores with stuff. We have Save Our Schools in Arizona. That is a educator-led organization, grassroots, helping get signatures and things to help schools. We host Save Our Schools outside for tabling our stores. This fight is not one that's just going to be won by finding non-traditional partnerships. It's going to take all of the village and the community to do that. So if you don't know those organizations in your area, take a look, do that research, invite them into this conversation, because it's going to take all of us.
We need them. They need us. Yeah. We all need each other, everyone. And these things take time. They really do. And don't be discouraged if one way doesn't work. Again, it just depends on everyone's needs. And so I have definitely tried things that did not work very well that I thought they would. And even if I heard from other bookstores that it worked so well for them, it's just everywhere is different. So you just have to find what works not just best for you and your bookstore, but of course your community, your schools, teachers, students, based on their needs and where you're able to meet them. And again, ask for support from publishers. We talked about that free swag and any other ways that they can support you, and just to let them know of the things you're interested in. So be in contact, because I've reached out before and let publishers know that, hey, I'm having a teacher night. If you have anything that is really cool, literary, that you're just like looking to push out, I'm happy to take it. And they've been really generous. So thank you, publishers. Yeah. All right. I guess we can go ahead and open it up for our Q&A. Before we do that, I'm just going to remind everyone to please fill out the session survey, and tell us what you thought. And all of our contacts are here. Feel free to reach out to any of us with any questions. And thank you guys so much. All right, let's start our Q&A. And so just a reminder, if you would please wait for Emma in the back to come around with the microphone. This is being recorded, so we're going to make sure we pick all of it up. This is an accessibility concern also. We want to make sure that everyone can hear.
I'm in a bright color, so that helps. I'm wondering if y'all could talk more about the Parnassus Foundation and also the Roundup program that you have. My store is in a position where we're in a city where every school in the district is a Title I school, and we're a lot of the wealthier suburbs makes up a lot of our customer base, but when we get an author, we want to take them on school visits to the schools in our community. So we have partnered with this one excellent literacy nonprofit, but we're kind of in a place where it's like, how many times can we ask them to buy books for the schools? They've been great partners, but we are just looking for other ways to fund a book purchase so that we can continue to serve those Title I schools in our neighborhoods. And I would love to hear how that works for y'all.
Well, I will be honest. We're in a unique position where, being owned by an author, we are able to funnel that into our charity. So that is where the funding for that comes from mainly. Like I said, obviously not one size fits all. That's not going to be applicable to everyone. So I think that would, truthfully, just vary just depending on the needs of your store. But again, like, these things take time, and this existed, I will say, long before I came on board. But feel free to reach out to me, and I can see what other information I can find about starting something like that. because obviously that can kind of seem like a mammoth to start a foundation. But with the steadiness also that it's been, we're able to do, things that, can seem impossible, like meeting, very high book buy minimums, which is, I think the hardest part for almost everyone. And so being able to meet that, make sure every kid is able to get a book and bring the author there, that helps. And when those authors are on tour. But yeah, like I said, these things take time. Start with, where you are able to engage your community, any kind of fundraiser that you can have. And again, once you start engaging with your community, I think, and you're able to assess their needs, whether that's of your teachers and students and other nonprofits and parts of your community, and assess really what's needed and where you can meet people, then pieces can start coming together.
I would also say, you could look to businesses like banks, real estate, look who's funding sports teams, look on the back of t-shirts, who the 5Ks, those kinds of things, find those names and who's comfortable to cold call them and just make a pitch. I mean, who doesn't want to buy books for kids? Those people are, I would think that I've tried this. I've done some of this. It's just look for who's putting their name out there for sponsorship opportunities and try that. As a basic, and if they're willing, obviously there are ways to go down the path of founding that foundation. But if if somebody just has a desire to sort of fund a one-off occasionally or do something like that, you can also do that. And if you have a really compelling reason, I think.
I leverage, because our PTO is a 501c3, I'm always looking for grant opportunities to see if I can write like an author visit so that all the kids get a book. So I'm constantly looking for that. I also encourage, our education foundation does give teacher grants. So I will talk to teachers. I'll talk to the librarian and say, hey, is there a teacher that might be interested in doing this? Because I can't apply for those education foundation grants. It has to be a teacher. In fact, the principal got in trouble one time because she was writing so many grants for her teachers and they figured it out. So that's another way to leverage it. The other way is I have a customer he's a professional grant writer, and he does work with a lot of the community partners. And I mentioned that we're in the same position. I want to bring authors over to the school. The other schools, some of them are not Title I, even though it's the same school district. Ours is. So finding a way that we can maybe leverage other people in the community that he knows. The other thing is to, a little bit harder to find, but donor advised funds. There are folks that have donor advised funds. Maybe they're retired. Maybe they set money aside. But my in-laws have a donor advised fund, and they're always looking for folks to donate to. And so maybe there's someone in your network that has a donor advised fund that is willing to do that. I cold called some of my customers as they came to the counter for when we were raising money for the playground. The playground hadn't been replaced in 21 years, which life is maybe 15 years. And so our PTO raised $350,000 going through the same thing. We hit up businesses that had employees that had kids that attended that school. And then we were hitting up people that either had donor advised funds or maybe knew somebody that had a foundation. And that's how we raised that money. But I'm constantly looking for those sort of people. I'm also looking for who's donating to what. Is there a new organization in town that's donating to maybe it's not even related. Maybe they're donating to Columbia Riverkeeper. I look them up and I'm like, well, what else do they donate to?
Yeah. And as far as the Roundup program goes, it honestly started because we had jars on the counter that were, put $1 in for books for teachers. And it worked, and we'd been doing it kind of just willy-nilly. And we were like, is there a way that we could utilize this more? And so we made a SKU. We have book logs. So we just made a SKU that was books for teachers and started asking, hey, do you want to round up today for books for teachers? Cool. How much? And we just pull from that fund. It all goes in the same pot as the dollars in the thing. And then we were able to make a web on our website. We were like, hey, if you want to add on to your web purchase, here's, that way to do that. Or a page that we kind of had an existing partnership with a theater that we kind of retrofitted to be internally that was like, do you have more money to give? Would you like to donate 20 books, which is a class set, 30 books, which is a larger class set, 40 books, 50 books. And this page now just exists, and we put it on our newsletter, and it was very well received by our community, because you don't know unless you ask.
One other quick thing I'll just add in is you may look on the scbwi.org website. That's we know the acronym, Society of Children's Books, Writers, and Illustrators. Yes? Yes, thank you. They often, I have found, have had some links on their websites that can talk about grants for bringing authors to schools. You can also see authors who are local in your area who can go to a school for free. So another resource to check out.
So, sorry, one more thing. Last Winter Institute last year, there was a session on starting a nonprofit at your bookstore, and that is available to watch on the ABA's resources website. It was a really great panel. So if you want to learn how to start your own nonprofit, go check that out.
And if you don't have the energy to start a nonprofit, there's often nonprofits where they will incubate or partner with organizations that want to do projects. So I can't remember the term of it. There's a specific nonprofit term for it. Basically, you're not opening your own 501c3. You're using their number. I'm kind of doing that already with the PTO because I'm using their nonprofit status, but there are organizations that are focused on helping you get started. And then maybe if it's something you want to pursue, then you could do your own.
Which they talked about in that panel.
Yes.
And some of the people on the panel went that route.
Yeah. That was a good panel.
It was great.
Sorry if this is maybe a more fundamental question than the non-traditional context right now, but are publishers and distributors also contacting schools? And are there sometimes more than one bookstore that schools work with, or do they usually just kind of have like one go-to bookstore as like the main conduit for purchasing books and getting author events going?
I think that publishers are not the ones reaching out to schools for the most part. I would say that the way that we get our school visits is submitting through the event grids on Edelweiss. And I know the other schools in our area have gone that route or the other stores in our area have gone that route as well, where they pitched to the publisher that they had, schools that were willing. And then we reached out to the schools and we're like, are you able to meet? A lot of the publishers have minimum book buys to bring out an author. And so we go to our schools and say, can you do the 30 book, 50 book? Publishers, please stop doing 50 books and above. But book buys, please, and thank you. 100 books is too many. But yeah, at least that's how we've gone about it.
You can also push back to the publishers and be like, I can't really do that. I could maybe do this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I negotiate that number. Yeah.
And PTO, I think we said that before too.
Yeah.
PTO also sometimes will help with the book buys, oftentimes. Mm-hmm. So that helps too.
You may sometimes also I've run into PTOs. This is prior to me being on a PTO. They'll pay an author and I'm like, let me re-explain this. Let's partner together and I can work with my publisher partners to bring you an author and then you pay for the book. So it's sometimes an education. No, I shouldn't say sometimes. It's always an education when you're going into that. Your other person that's your best friend is the bookkeeper, your secretary in the office, because they will know. They often have purchasing power, the teachers to say, hey, can you get this for me? And then, if you have a relationship with them, and I'm in there a lot, they know that they can buy from you as a bookstore.
Make sure you're set up as a vendor with your school districts. That's a process to work through. And that way it's super easy. You can be like, I'm already set up in the county, in this whole county.
I'm fortunate it's a very small town that one of the board members on the Education Foundation used to be a principal when my husband was in high school. And she was very annoyed that there were teachers giving them, because it basically when they apply for a grant, they have to submit a form and then submit the costs. And she was sick of the Amazon quotes. And so now she came to us and she's like, can you handle doing quotes? And we're like, yes, of course. And so she made it a requirement that you get a quote somewhere else, not just from Amazon.
So do you have any advice for how to purchase for book fairs? Or like how to curate a list, how to plan, like just briefly, because I found myself in a position where I'm a relatively new buyer. And like 2 weeks ago, my boss was like, hey, the book fair is on March 3rd. Can you order the books? And so I just kind of had to throw it together. So I don't know. I was just wondering what other people's process was for that.
We keep a binder every summer of, at least if you're doing it in the summer, for their summer reading lists. And so all of our schools that we do have contact with, we reach out to them and say, hey, just a reminder, please send us your summer reading list. And then we make sure we have stocks of those. And you'll find that a lot of these reading lists overlap if it's, ones for schools.
Also be aware of Battle of the Books if they have that in your
Yeah,
area.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
very,
yeah.
very key. And also educate your booksellers at the front line that they know about those books and those authors and who've appeared on Battle of the Books list, because that's really a good way to show that you know what kids are excited about in reading in your community.
Mm-hmm.
I believe there's a book fair education session that was recorded also from a previous Winter Institute or Children's Institute online, and they have a lot of resources. And a lot of the publishers have book fair programs now that you can leverage and list too.
You can also do a virtual book fair, which is something that I've done too on our website, where schools can order specifically through. And then, at least on our website, our product list will have, some of our main highlights, but really they can order anything for their book fair. And that's a fundraiser for the school too. We are out of time. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to say thank you to everyone here, Allie and Jenny and Maggie. Thank you, everyone.
If you have questions, we'll be hanging out for a bit.
Yes.
Thank you for listening to Booked, the bookstore education podcast brought to you by the American Booksellers Association. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app. Additional educational resources can always be found on the ABA site at www.bookweb.org. Happy reading!